Hello, welcome to Tap That MTG, the show where we tell you everything we know about magic that's probably wrong, but really fun to talk about.
Super fun.
I'm Shauna.
I'm Leslie.
And today we are bringing you another, seems like forever ago that we've done our last one, but another pre-release video going through the commons and uncommons cards for you today, whatever you are.
So whether you're doing a pre-release at home or whether you're doing a pre-release in a store, there's a certain way of building a sealed deck. So pre-release, I guess we'll talk about what
is a pre-release?
What is a pre-release?
Some people might not know.
Yeah, so pre-release basically a week before any new set comes out, Wizards holds what they call a pre-release, and it is a sealed tournament style where you get 6 packs of cards and you'll get a little kit. It has 6 packs of cards, it has a promo in it, and it has a turn down counter. And you're going to take those 6 packs of cards and you're going to build a 40 card deck. And in that 40 card deck, you're going to want to put the best of the things that might win you the game. And that's what we're going to talk about today. However, we are talking not about all the cards in the set because that would take us hours and hours and hours. And most of you, if you've been watching the Zendikar spoilers, have seen a lot of the fun rares that are out there. So we're just going to talk about the commons and uncommons today. And why are we talking about just the uncommons and commons?
Well, because you're only going to get 6 packs, so you're only going to have 6 rares and mythic rares to mess with. Half the time they're ones that you don't even want to use. So your commons and uncommons are going to be the main meat of your deck. They're the tools that you need to win the game. The bombs might help, but you might play your games and not even see that one card. Whereas with the commons and uncommons, you might have 3 or 4 of them that are actually going to do some work for you.
Yeah, I've seen lots of people that have won a pre-release without putting any of their rares in their deck. Because number one, you're only going to get 6, and you don't know that those 6 are going to synergize with each other. You might get one, and if you're like me, they'll all be land.
Yes, this
True
is true.
story.
It happened recently.
Every time I have a
Terrible.
pre-release, I get land, which I'm not complaining about. It works for other things, but it doesn't win me pre-releases.
No.
So there's a few new mechanics in there. We'll, of course, explain them a little bit further when the cards come. But the first one is called Party, and Wizards has decided to do all kinds of fun things in there that are kind of close to D&D. So, you build an adventuring party. So an adventuring party consists of a cleric, a rogue, a warrior, and a wizard. So there's 4 in a party. And if you have a party or some members of a party, you will get special abilities depending on the cards. So we'll talk about those when the cards come up. But Party is one new mechanic. The other is what?
Modal. Or it's another, they're double-faced cards. So we had some double-faced cards back in Innistrad and Shadows over Innistrad.
A little different than Transform.
Stuff. It's different than the Transform for sure. Well, I'll just mention that it's basically you choose which side of the card you want to play at that time.
Similar to I don't know why they didn't just do, I know why they didn't just do. So I don't know why they didn't just do like the 2 beside each other, like the find finality where so it's the same as those. You choose which one you want to play, and then once you've chosen, it's done. And at first I was like, why didn't they just do it that way? It's because a lot of times the other side is a land, and so it's really hard to know, is that land tapped if you have it sideways, and did you play it as a land, did you play it as a creature, where is it sitting on your battlefield? So I think that's why they did the both sides.
So when you do a pre-release, or when you do use these cards, you can see the back of the card. So what are you going to do?
Good question.
How can you do that?
A lot of times, what you'll get in your, probably every pack, I'm guessing, will have a token that's in there that has a list of the cards that are double-sided. And you'll play with that in your deck. So you'll sleeve up your cards, and actually with that in your deck, you don't have to sleeve up your card because it has a regular magic back. So you put a little dot on the card that's in your deck. So let's say it was, I don't have one in front of me, but it was one of these little
Yeah.
fancy land instant or sorceries. You'd put a little check mark next to that so that when it's in your hand, you know what the mana cost is, you know which card it is that you actually have in your hand, but then you play with it off to the side, and then you just, when you play that card, you actually pull it out and you decide what you want to play it as at that time. So it seems and sounds really, really confusing, but there will be little tokens that come along with your packs that you can use for that.
To pretend.
To pretend that it's that card.
Yeah.
Yeah. So pre-release and decks and breakdown, how, like what should you think about when you're building your pre-release deck?
Well, you're going to think about, you only have 40 cards, number one, so that limits how many cards you can play with. So you'll want to stick with about 17 lands, depending on your mana curve, maybe 18, maybe 16. And then you'll want the rest of your cards to be mostly creatures, with a few instances and sorceries, enchantments type things in there, but not a lot, because this is a very aggressive, generally, creature heavy format. So you want to make sure you've got lots of good stuff in there. And then you want your mana curve to have only a couple cards at the 1 cost, and then a good 7 or so at the 2 mana cost, about 6 at 3, and then 4 and 5 and up you want like 6 or 7 in there too, maybe 8, depending on what you have got. We're going to talk about some bombs and stuff.
But don't put like six mana cost cards, because they're really good
Don't
cards.
do that.
And you think, this is an awesome card, because you'll be dead before you need that smaller stuff. So when you're talking mana curve,
Just
2 and
1
3.
to 4 mostly.
Yeah, 2 and 3 is what you want to go for.
Yeah.
So definitely.
And then the other thing that we talk about a lot is the bread principle. So I'll get Leslie to explain the whole bread principle to you.
So this is the main part of our video where we're talking about bread and the cards that fit within bread. So bread is super good. It's super bad for you, but we're not talking about the bread you eat. We're talking about the acronym bread. So acronym BREAD stands for bombs, removal, evasion, aggro, and dudes. And that is the order in which you want to prioritize what you're putting in your deck. So the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to figure out which your bombs are. Maybe 1, maybe 2. Hopefully you have at least 2 cards. Your bomb is something that is going to win you the game. Yep. Maybe it's a big flyer, maybe it's a big stompy dude with trample that can gain indestructible. Something that once you get it out, you're good to go. You can win the game with this. Then the second is removal. So the second most important thing once you do your bombs is removal. Second most important thing. Removal, 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 removal. As much removal as you can. Basically we talked about putting a few instants and sorceries in there. Pretty much all your instants and sorceries should be around removal in some way, shape, or form. And there's also a lot of creatures and things like that you can use as removal, which we'll talk about when we get to the removal section. Next one is evasion. Right. And what's evasion?
Evasion is cards that are going to give you a way to get in there and smack people in the face. So that might be flying, that might be menace, that might be trample, death touch. I call death touch evasion personally, but because you're going to be able to get in there and get their life total down. That's what you want. So you want to be able to get in there.
And the next one is aggro. So we're moving on down the line, and it's like, well, if I don't have a removal or an evasion spell left, then I'm going to put some aggressive spells in there. In pre-release, you're going to want to kill them faster than you, like, it's only a 40 card deck.
40 cards.
So you want to go fast. It's not like a let's set it up and draw it out type format. So you want to get aggressive and put whatever you can to be aggressive. Things that are aggressive are typically cards that have a larger power and a smaller toughness. So your 4/3s, your 3/1s, your 3/2s, those are your aggressive cards, or things that get bigger really fast so you can swing. Things with haste are also super aggressive. And what are dudes? Like, I mean, we know what dudes are, but
well, once you've got all these key cards, you're going to have a few spots that have some holes. We call them holes. So you want to make sure you fill out that curve so you don't have turns where you don't do anything. So your dudes are those cards that are going to fill in those spots. So generally they're a 2/2 for 2 or a 3/3 for 3, those kinds of things. So you want to make sure that you've got your curve nicely filled out so that you always have a play every turn. Because like we said, it's an aggressive format and you need to make sure you're playing every turn. Otherwise you're dead.
Yeah. And you'll hear a lot people talking about, oh, that's on curve. So what they're talking about is whether something matches what it should for Magic. And if you look at the Magic cards and their converted mana cost, you'll notice a theme. Things that are 3/3 cost 3. Things that are 2/2 cost 2. That is on curve. That's what they should cost. So if you're getting a 3/3 for 4, that is a little bit high unless it has some special abilities. So once you start adding special abilities, then Wizards will start going, okay, this is a common, we need to keep it common, so let's maybe, add some flying, but make it super more expensive. So that's kind of where the curve lies. If you have a 4/2, you can add those two up. So 4 plus 2 is 6, divided by 2 is 3, so that's on curve. A 4/2 is on curve. So that's what we're talking about a little bit later when we do that.
Yeah.
So, without
right,
further
let's
ado,
get into it.
What's our first section, Shauna?
Our first section is bombs. So
Bom, bom,
your
bom.
your rares and your mythic rares, I hope, best of luck that you've got some really amazing bombs in there.
Yeah.
And go watch those YouTube guys. They talk about all those cards, or just look at those very
There's lots of cool rares out there.
Yeah. Those are hopefully going to be a
Angel
bomb
of
for
Destiny,
you. Yeah,
please.
like that kind of stuff. But a lot of times you may have nothing there or nothing that can be supported. So we've got a few commons and uncommon bomb type cards that we think they'll really win you the game, and you might have 2 of them. That would be really awesome if you did.
Exactly.
So I'll let Leslie talk about the first one.
Okay, well, the first one is Veteran Adventurer. It is a 5/5 for 6, so it's a little bit above. However, Veteran Adventurer is also a Cleric, Rogue, Warrior, and Wizard. It's a human. It fits all of those creature types. And this spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature in your party. And it also has Vigilance. So I'll talk about party because this is our first party card.
I think this is a
good way to
spot
start.
to do this.
So it's a 5/5 for 6, but it costs 1 less to cast for each member of your party. When you're talking pre-release, you're probably not going to have 4 members of your party out necessarily when you go to play this. However, you might have what we're considering probably 2. That's probably reasonable in pre-release. So you'll probably have 2, either a wizard and a warrior, or a rogue and a warrior, or a cleric and a wizard, whatever combination, it doesn't really matter. So you have 2 things out on the battlefield. That means this costs 2 colorless, which is the 5, to less to cast. So that turns your 5 into a 3. So now this is a 5/5 for 4. So remember, we're talking about mana curve. This is now below mana curve and awesome. So you have something that probably costs less than mana curve, and it's a 5/5 with Vigilance, so you don't have to tap it when you attack it. That, for us, puts it into the bomb category and can potentially win you the game.
Definitely.
Good card.
And I have a question about this card.
Yeah.
Because it is a cleric, rogue, warrior, and a wizard, so it's for all 4 things. So does that mean that this card is a party
Counts
of
for
4?
all 4? That's a really good question, actually. No, it does not.
It does
only
not.
one card counts for one thing. So,
Yeah.
but you can count it for any of those. So if you have a warrior on the battlefield, you can count it as a rogue
Yeah.
if you need to.
Or if you have some warrior synergy, it could
Yeah.
be another warrior for
If you have some rogue synergy, it can be a
So,
rogue for you. It's a
very
really good card.
handy.
I like it. for
It's
an
uncommon. The next one is Seagate Colossus for 7. It's a 7/5. And this one is, again, the spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature in your party. So at this point in the game, you're going to have a couple of those dudes out there, and you're going to get a 7/5, which is a very aggressive, very big guy for cheap. Cheap, cheap, cheap.
Yeah, potentially.
Even if you paid full price for me, still
Even
big.
if you paid full price, it's still pretty
Yeah.
good. Kazandu Stomper is a 6/5 for 6, and it has trample, which is awesome, and it enters the battlefield. You get to return 2 lands you control to its owner's hand. So in pre-release, that's probably not going to be relevant. You might have some land synergy going on, but a 6/5 with trample for 6 is really decent little bomb. If nothing else, it's going to start killing their creatures off and potentially their 5/5 creatures off. They have to block with their bombs or chump.
Yeah, have to do something. They have to deal with it, basically. Your bomb is something they have to deal with that, otherwise they're dead.
Yeah.
Amaria Captain for 3 and a white. It's a 1/1 flyer, but it has vigilance.
How can a 1/1
so we were a
flyer
little
be
bit
a bomb?
concerned about that. But when it enters the battlefield, you get to put a 1/1 counter on it for each creature in your party. So again, we are considering that you're going to have 2, hopefully 3, hopefully 4 out when you play this card. So again, it fits really, really well with that whole adventure theme that's going on.
Only a bomb if you make it a bomb, this one.
Yes.
If you decide to play it as a 1/1 for 4 and don't have anything on your battlefield, then it's not a bomb.
No. No.
But it could be bigger, and then
not a
it's
good
flying
choice.
vigilance.
That's
It's
right.
pretty awesome. So we love this one. Dread Worm for 5. It's a 5/4. It has landfall. So landfall is a fun little mechanic. It's not a new mechanic. It's old, but it's whenever a land enters the battlefield, something happens. It'll say on the card what happens. In this case, when it enters the battlefield, this worm gains indestructible until the end of turn. So now you have a 5/4 that every time you play a land, it gains indestructible till the end of turn. Which, if you've built your deck and are managing your land well, then you're probably going to have it as an indestructible every single turn. You might want to put a little bit of extra land in your deck if you use this as your bomb, just so that you know you have those. But with the modal cards that are out there that are potentially land as well as spells, you can definitely fit those in without taking up a land or a spell slot.
Yeah.
It's awesome. It's a great card. I love this card. And it's a common.
So we think it's going to win some games.
I
for
think it's
sure.
probably going to win some games. So the next section is what?
Removal, we're getting into removal. The first one we have is a little card that has been seen before, a little Vanquish the Weak for 2 and a black, an instant that you can destroy target creature with power 3 or less. In this format, again, because it's aggressive, I think it's a pretty good little, get those little guys out of there.
Yeah,
The
everyone's playing with dudes.
aggressive dudes.
We're
yeah.
talking about dudes a little bit later, and they're all like 3 power or less.
Yep.
So, Thundering Rebuke for 2, you can do 4 damage to target creature or planeswalker. That is great. It is a sorcery, so it's not as good as like a nice little instant speed, but that's a great
4 damage.
4 damage for 2. That's awesome.
Yeah. Smite the Monstrous. It's a 3 and a white instant. Destroy target creature with power 4 or greater. So yeah, just having that instant speed and being able to get rid of their big bombs. Sweet.
So Synchronized Spellcraft for 5 is an instant, and it deals 4 damage to target creature and X damage to creature's controller, where X is the number of creatures in your party. We're going to say 2 in this case, just because that's the number that we've decided to say you'll probably have. So 4 damage to them, 2 damage to their face. That is 1 extra for curve. You're doing basically 6 damage for 5, so that's decent.
Nice. Subtle Strike for 1 and a black. This, I think, is always a really good card to have in Limited, and it is an instant speed where you can choose one or both. Target creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn, and you can also put a 1/1 counter on target creatures. So you make yours bigger, they're smaller, poof. It's a really great combat trick for sure. And you get a counter.
So talk about instants and combat tricks.
So instances are made to be played during combat. So use those cards before, like in that combat, so that the person doesn't know what you're planning, what you're doing. You're not going to buff up your creature beforehand. You're going to buff it up when they've decided on their blockers. So then you affect them without them being able to do anything.
Yeah, instants are in response.
Yep.
Sizzling Barrage is another instant. It does 4 damage to target target creature that block this turn. So because it's an instant, you can wait until they block, and then you do 4 damage before combat damage. You don't have to wait till it does damage to your creature. It just has to block. So, hence the instant.
Mm-hmm. Ruin Crab is one little dude. It's ruining. For 1 blue, it's a 0/3 with landfall, and whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent mills 3 cards.
So perfect that you get to explain how wonderful this card is.
Mill is going to be a thing, I think, with this.
In this pre-release.
Pre-release, and I'm not happy about it. Let's just say. Because you only have 40 cards, right? So there are going to be some people trying this out, and this is a great way to try that out because whenever a land enters, you're going to mill them for 3, and there's other ways you're going to mill them. They're going to be out of cards so quickly. That's why we put it in removal, because it's the blue ultimate removal of getting rid of all your cards before you even get a chance to play.
That's how blue does it.
That's
so
what they do.
If you're in blue, this is a great little remove their cards.
Yeah.
Royal Eruption for 2 is a nice little sorcery that has kicker 5. It does 3 damage to any target, which is nice because it can be their face. So 3 damage for 2. It's a nice little lightning strike, but it has the upside that you can kick it and it does 5 damage instead. I don't love that that means that it costs 7 for 5 damage. You're probably not going to use that portion of it unless you absolutely have to, but 3 damage for 2 is nice removal.
Definitely. Resolute Strike, it's another little instant, another combat trick type thing. For only 1 white, you get, target creature gets +2 until end of turn. If it's a warrior, you may attach an equipment you control to it, so that's probably irrelevant. But definitely having that combat trick of +2/+2 all of a sudden for 1 mana is really good, I think.
Yeah. Wait till they block and then play.
That's right.
Rabid Bite is a sorcery. This is not a new card. It's been around for a long time. I love the new artwork on this one. It does basically damage equal to its power to target creature you don't control. So whatever you want to decide to kill, you just look at your power, look at the toughness, and it just does damage. So it's important to know the thing that I think a lot of new players that I've talked to that see this card, they don't have to fight for that to happen. It's just damage to it. So
do it beforehand to get their blockers out of the way or whatever. Pressure Point. So this is a little instant that's been around for a while, and it's really good in limited. It's 1 and a white, tap target creature, and you get to draw a card. So yeah, you can get rid of their blocker or whatever, and then you get to draw a card as well. So it's pretty awesome.
Talk about move to combat.
Yes.
Whether you should say that and why you should say that.
This is a good example. So if you want to make sure that you say move to combat to give a person the chance to say, before you do that, I'm going to tap that creature. So you should always say move to combat or going to combat so that people have a chance to respond and say, okay, before you declare your attackers, because you're going to be tapping, you want to tap their creatures beforehand. So
you also don't want to let them know what you're going to attack with. So by stopping and saying, I'm going to move to combat, you're basically, it's to your benefit to give them the opportunity. Are you going to do anything before I move to combat? No? Okay, now moving to combat, and then you swing in. If all of a sudden they're like, oh, I didn't know you were going to swing with your 4/4, well, sorry, I gave you the opportunity. But if you don't give them the opportunity, they can very easily say, I didn't know you were moving to combat. Actually, I want to tap
4/4. Yeah.
So it's a good idea to say move to combat before you go. Practice Tactics for 1. Choose target attacking or blocking creature. Practice Tactic deals damage to target creature equal to twice the number of creatures in your party. It does not even matter if you only have 1 creature in your party. You are doing 2 damage to that creature. If you have 2, it's 4 damage. In and of itself, it costs 1 for 2 damage. It's awesome. Anything above that is like cream cheese icing on the cake. Like not even just icing on the cake. It's cream cheese icing on the cake. This is a great
Can you tell we like the party thing?
Yeah, the party is going to be
it's going to be relevant.
I think it'll be relevant in this pre-release for sure.
Then we have Oblivion's Hunger for 1 and a black. Another instant. Target creature you control gains indestructible until end of turn. Draw a card if that creature has a 1/1 counter on it. So that's an awesome bonus if you have it. But it's a great little instant. They've blocked. They think they're going to kill your big bomb or whatever. They think they're going to kill your creature, and you're like, nope, sorry, it's indestructible. Yours is dead, mine's not. Which is awesome.
She loves doing that.
I love doing that kind of thing.
Nahiri's Binding. Enchant creature or planeswalker. Enchanted creature can't attack or block this turn, and activated abilities can't be activated, or it can't attack or block ever, and its activated abilities. So those things that are just super annoying on the battlefield that keep activating abilities or just are attacking, you put this on their bomb, it's 3 great removal.
Definitely.
Good old Nahiri. Is she evil? Who knows?
Yeah, something's going on there. Molten Blast for 2 and a red. It's a little instant that you choose 1. It deals either 2 damage to target creature or planeswalker, or you can destroy an artifact. So there are some pretty good equipment that you might want to deal with, or a little 2 damage that you can finish off somebody, finish off their planeswalker or their creature.
Yeah, when you're talking curve, this is like 2 damage for 3, so it's expensive, but because it has the synergy of the artifact, it's not great removal, but there's nothing wrong with 2 damage.
Helpful.
There's a lot of 3/2s in this set, so.
Yeah.
Mind Drain for 3, target opponent discards 2 cards, mills a card, loses a life, and you gain a life. So, they lose a life, you gain a life, meh, who cares. Target opponent discards 2 cards and mills a card, you're now getting rid of 3 things for 3. That is very decent removal for black.
And it adds to that stupid mill thing.
I might have to try mill, just because we always get paired together.
Yeah.
First game. We never get to go to the...
She'll kick me out immediately.
No, she always kicks me out.
Might of Marasa for 1 and a green, an instant that can be kicked for 2 and a green. Target creature gets +3/+3 until end of turn. If the spell was kicked, that creature gets +5/+5 until end of turn. So that could be a really crazy combat trick, especially if your creature has trample, which there are ways, and there are creatures that have trample. So it's a good little surprise.
So I think this is our first modal card that we get to talk about. It is Pelika Predation. It's a sorcery that costs 3. Target opponent reveals their hand. You choose a card from it with converted mana cost of 3 or greater. It doesn't matter if it's an instant sorcery or creature. That player discards that card. So you're going to get to look at their hand. You get some knowledge. You get to discard a card. But if you notice in the very top left corner, there's this little arrow, teardrop, sideways thing. That means there's something on the other side. And if you look at the very bottom of the card, it'll show you that is a land that taps for 1 black. All of the modals are land that taps for something. Most of them come in tapped when you play them. So great little card for removal. It also comes with a land. If you decide that you don't need the removal or they don't have any cards in hand, you can just play it as a land and have some stuff to play. So
The Colony Ambush is the green version of this modal little tricks going on here. So this one you can have a target creature you control fight target creature you don't control, or it can be just a green mana. So fighting means that they do damage to each other, so keep that in mind when you're I said doo-doo.
I know, I laughed. You saw me giggle.
You said doo-doo. Yeah.
Oh my
Some
gosh,
days
we're
immature.
so immature.
So your creatures are fighting each other. So your 6/5, you're going to want to make sure that's a 6/5 against their 4/4 or something like that, they're going to fight. So it does do damage.
And Kazul's Fury is the 3 mana cost red spell that's an instant. It is an additional cost to cast this spell. You sacrifice a creature. And then Kazul's Fury does damage equal to sacrificed creature's power to any target. Could be their face. This could win you the game. You could sacrifice your 6/6 bomb to do that final 6 damage to their face with this card. And it's a land on the other side.
So you could do 12 damage in a turn. That'd be awesome, right?
Wouldn't it?
Bang,
Actually,
you're
yeah.
dead. Especially if they're milling you.
You swing in with your flyer first, and then, yeah, definitely.
Finish them off with that. Kabira Takedown is a white version of it.
love this card.
For 1 and a white, it is, for 2 here, deals damage equal to the number of creatures you control to target creature or planeswalker. And if you're in white, you got lots of creatures. I know you do.
Warriors are gonna, this is a great card.
Yeah. Creature or planeswalker.
Love it.
Love it.
Wari, Jari,
Is the J silent? I don't know.
Or is one of them is silent. We're gonna say Wari. Disruption for 2. This is our blue modal land, one of them. Anyways, counter target spell unless its controller pays 1. So in blue, there's a lot of tap target creature, return target creature to the other hand, but we feel that if you're in blue and you do want to be one of those blue players, your counter target spells are a decent form of removal. Not if it says counter target instant or sorcery card, because those are specific and there's not going to be a lot of instants and sorceries being played around the sealed tables. So this one, however, makes it because it's just counter target spell unless the person pays 1, your opponent pays 1. If they've already got a ton of land out, then you can just play it as a land, and so that's why we made it as a, you could put this in as removal if you're in blue.
Yeah. Into the Royal is 1 and a blue instant that can be kicked for 1 and a blue as well, and return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. If the spell was kicked, draw a card. So it's a 2-in-1 kind of thing if you can kick it. Drawing a card is always nice, and getting rid of something that you can then counter again later on. So it's the blue shenanigans there. You put it back in their hand and then you counter it next turn. It's a great way to do it.
Another one for you blue players, Glacial Grasp for 3. It's an instant, which is awesome. It's common, but you get to tap target creature, and then its controller mills 2 cards. So you're slowing them down, getting rid of 2 cards off of the top of their library, and that creature doesn't untap during its next untap step, and you get to draw an extra card out of it. Lots of stuff happening in this card, so definitely worth the 3 mana.
Feed the Swarm for 1 and a black. We're into the good old black cards here now. So destroy target creature or enchantment an opponent controls. Nice. But you lose life equal to the permanent's converted mana cost. That's because it's a creature or enchantment removal for 2. You have to be punished somehow. But
Black
you're going
likes to punish you.
Exactly. You're going to have lots of life gain though, right?
Your life is a resource.
That's right.
Demon's Disciple for 3. It's a 3/1, which normally we say, okay, a 3/1 is aggro, but this enters the battlefield. Each player sacrifices a creature or a planeswalker. You can sacrifice this creature if you choose to, so it can just come in, you sacrifice it to itself, and they have to sacrifice something. This is great. You have to think of the timing. If they have a bunch of lots of little 1/1s or things that they can sacrifice, then it doesn't do anything for you. So that's the downfall of this card, but we did put it in the removal section because it is definitely valid removal. If they've only got 1 thing left on the battlefield, you can get rid of it.
Bomb or whatever. Journey to Oblivion for 4 and a white. It's an enchantment that costs 1 less to cast for each creature in your party. And when it enters the battlefield, exile target non-land permanent an opponent controls until Journey to Oblivion leaves the battlefield. So it could be a really cheap exile something. So yeah, it's get rid of something really cheap. That would be really nice. But even at 5, it's still really good. I've used Wanderer's Strike and that sort of thing in pre-releases. That's been, if you can exile something, that's awesome.
Deadly Alliance, the spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature in your party, and it's just destroy target creature or planeswalker for 5. Again, same as the other one. Really, 5 to destroy something that's big is reasonable, but the fact that this could cost less and probably will cost less makes it a valid removal spell.
Then we have Cunning Geyser Mage for 2 and a blue, a 3/2 creature that can be kicked for 2 and a blue, and when it enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, return up to 1 other target creature to its owner's hand. So you're getting a creature, and then if you kick it too, you're also getting rid of their big blocker or whatever. That's kind of nice. Yeah.
So Cinderclasm, or if you're a red player, Cindergasm, for 2 is an instant. It deals 1 damage to each creature. If it was kicked, it does 2 damage to each creature instead. There's a lot of little 2/2s or 3/2s or even 4/1s or 3/1s out there. You can potentially wipe their board with this. I would definitely play this for the 3 mana cost. Pay the extra mana and kick it.
This is a fun little card, Bubble Snare, for 1 blue. Little enchantment. You can kick it for 2 and a blue. And you enchant a creature. When it enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, you get to tap it, and then it doesn't untap during its controller's untap step. So you tap it, so it can't swing at you, for sure.
So Broken Wings, we had a little bit of a debate on this one, which is okay because we can talk to you about that debate.
Yep.
It is a 3 mana cost instant. It destroys target artifact, enchantment, or creature with flying. Shauna would put it in the sideboard because situational. Do they have flying artifact or enchantment? I'm saying they probably will have flying. In pre-release, almost everybody plays flyers. You don't have that many creatures to draw from. The flyers are usually going to be there. So having this as removal in your hand, you're going to have something with flying to remove. I agree, artifacts and enchantments, you probably won't have those and don't need to remove those. They're not going to win that person the game in most cases. But it's definitely worth having it there for flyers. So, yeah.
And I think you can bring it in game 2 if you need to.
I say win game 1.
Because, yeah, that's something else we didn't mention, that in a pre-release, you play best of 3. So you get a chance to go to your sideboard and get cards that you didn't have. So go get that card.
I'll win game 1 and 2.
She's going to win game 1 and 2. That's right, because she's going to mill me. Inordinate
with
rage.
my flyers that mill you.
Yeah, that's right.
That you couldn't get rid of. Anyways.
Yeah, exactly. Inordinate Rage. This is a really funny looking card for 1 and a white. It's like a crazy Canadian with the big, it's a moose. Right?
Yeah, he's like a little
Canadian.
and look at his smile. It's
We're
like
the lunatic Canadians here. So here's a crazy fun combat trick. Target creature gets +3/+2. All of a sudden your creature is gigantic and lunatic. And you get to scry, so that's kind of nice.
Yeah. Dauntless Unity for 2. Kicker has an extra 2, so for 4. So you can either have creatures you control, all creatures you control get +1/+1 until the end of turn, or if you kick it, they get +2/+1 until the end of turn instead. So this is an aggressive card, but we put it in combat in removal because it's a great little combat trick. Again, you wait until they do other blockers because you can just, here's what I would do. Oh man, I don't know. I guess the only thing I can do is just swing.
Swing with everything.
I guess I'll just swing with everything because there's nothing else I can do.
I can see
okay.
her doing this. Yep.
So then they block. Ha ha! +2/+1. That's how I would do it.
Yes, because she's evil like that. But that's how
You
win
have
games.
to have an innocent air about you. I need to play with new people because they all know my tricks.
Yeah, that's right. Blood Chief's Thirst for 1 black, and it has a kicker of 2 and a black. You can destroy a target creature or planeswalker with converted mana cost 2 or less, which is pretty awesome. If the spell was kicked, though, you can destroy a target creature or planeswalker, so any of them. It doesn't matter. You can just destroy something for 4, basically, which is good. Always good.
All right, so now you've picked your bombs, you've picked your removal, you have some good solid cards in there, instants and sorceries. Now you want some creatures and things with evasion. So, as we talked about before, evasion is things like flying, trample, menace,
Death Touch.
things that can get through even if they block or that they have trouble blocking. So the first one is Shepherd of Heroes. It is an angel cleric. A flyer 3/4 for 5, so it's a little expensive. However, because it has flying, that's why you're getting that. The fact that you get 2 life for each creature in your party is kind of irrelevant, but nice to have. But a 3/4 flyer, super awesome, hard to get rid of. Maybe you should play your flying removal in your main board.
Maybe you should. Here's another flyer. For 3 and 2 blue, so it's an expensive one too, but it's a 4/4 flyer, and whenever you cast a kick spell, scry 2, so that's kind of a nice bonus, and if you have that much mana, you might be kicking some spells, and there's a lot of kicker, so yeah, it's a 4/4 flyer, again, no,
4/4 for 5 is
so hard to get rid
awesome
of these
flyer.
big guys.
So here's another flyer. It's a 3/2. Again, 3/2. They can get, most of these are easy to remove, but a 3/2 for 4, and as long as you control a wizard, Expeditious Diviner has, whenever this creature dies, draw a card. Nothing wrong with a nice little card draw. Great little flyer. Good evasion.
And aggressive.
We love this next one.
We love this next one. So Cliff Haven Kite Sail. It's a little equipment for 1. But the equipment in this set, I think pretty much all of them, when they enter the battlefield, you get to attach it right away to any creature you control. And then This one, that equipped creature has flying, so suddenly you've got a 6/5 flyer or that 7/5 flyer, big thing. Or you can just equip for 2 later on if it falls off, if the creature dies or whatever. So again, that whole being able to fly over their heads and deal a ton of damage, this is gonna win you games.
Well, when you think about the bombs that we talked about earlier, that big green trample guy, you give that flying, all of a sudden now, like, that cost you 1. Why wouldn't you play it?
And it's coming from out of nowhere. They think you have no flying, and all of a sudden on your turn you're gonna make your
auto include in any deck.
I think so.
Yeah,
personally. But
Black Bloom Rogue is our first modal creature.
yay!
So he is a human rogue. He has menace, which is why he's nice evasion, and it gets +3/+0 as long as an opponent has 8 or more cards in their graveyard. Now, there's a lot of cards in this set that if they have 8 or more cards in their graveyard, this happens. It's not going to happen for you in pre-release. It might once or twice, but in the grand scheme of the whole tournament, the likelihood of that happening on a regular basis consistently is fairly slim. So don't put them in your deck based on that. However, it is a 2/3 with menace, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
And it's also a land.
Yeah. Here's a really, it's a Coom Warrior. It's another one of these modal cards. It's a 4/5 for 5 and a red. So it's a little bit expensive, but it's still a 4/5, hard to get rid of. And this one has trample. So that's why we decided that it should be in the evasion cards, because he's a big boy that's probably going to get through.
I love this card. This is one of my favorite cards in the set. Not only is it adorable, it is a really good card. So it is a 1/1 for 2, which you're like, well, that seems dumb and expensive, but it has landfall. And whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you get a 1/1 counter on Fearless Fledging. It gains flying until the end of turn. So it doesn't have flying normally, but it gets flying when you play a land, which hopefully is every turn. And it gets bigger every single turn. This could turn into your bomb. Your tiny little dude that you thought that everyone was like, I don't care about that, all of a sudden is getting bigger and bigger and bigger and is flying in at their face. I love this card.
It's probably going to win some games for her, I'm sure.
I hope I get it.
Yeah. Aggro cards now we're getting into. The first one we have is a Skyclave Geopede for 2 and a red, a 3/1. We like our little 3/1 aggressive cards. This one has trample, which is really awesome because it has landfall. So whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, Skyclave Geopede gets +2/+2 until end of turn. So suddenly you've played this card and suddenly you play a land, just a land next turn, and it's a 5/3 all of a sudden with trample.
Yeah,
So,
on turn 4.
On turn 4.
It's awesome.
They're in trouble.
Yep. Shatter Skull Minotaur is a 5/4 for 6. It does cost 2 red, but this spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature in your party. Again, if we go with 2, then potentially you're getting a 5/4 for 4, which is a nice aggressive. It also has haste, so it can swing right away.
They're not going to be expecting that.
Mm-hmm.
Seafloor Stalker for 2 and a blue. It's a 2/3. So we kind of hummed and hawed about this one because when you look at it, it's got also you pay 4 and a blue to give it +1/+0 until end of turn. It can't be blocked. But that ability costs 1 less to activate for each creature in your party. So you could have a 3/3 unblockable pretty easily by the time this is swinging.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it counts towards
Its own,
itself, right?
Yeah.
So we've already got 1, so it's already 1 less when it goes to swing because you have 1 in the party. You have a rogue from him.
Yeah, that's a good point because we didn't talk about that yet with parties.
Yeah.
They do count. The only time they don't count for themselves is when it's making it less to cast. But once it's on the battlefield, it counts as a member of the party. So any of those, this automatically only costs 4 to make it unblockable.
Yeah.
Scorch Rider for 4. It is a human warrior with kicker cost 2. So it's a 4/3. It enters the battlefield. If it was kicked, it gains haste. In and of itself, it's a 4/3 for 4, which is a decent aggressive card. You can pay an extra 2 to give it haste. I don't know that I would necessarily pay the 2. If you had 2 to spare, then I would.
Yeah.
I would much rather have a combat trick up my sleeve and then use it that way.
Yeah.
But 4/3 is a nice aggressive card. Oh, this one's awesome.
McKindy Ox. It looks beautiful. It's a 4 and a white for a 4/4, but it has landfall, and whenever a land enters battlefield under your control, tap target creature and opponent controls. So any pre-release that I've ever been to where you have a card that can tap a creature before you attack, it's game changing. It's really hard for them to deal with.
So why did we put this in aggression instead of in removal or control?
Because you're going to be playing a land on your turn. So you're going to play your land, you're going to tap their big boy that can block this, and you're going to get in for 4 damage. Extremely aggressive. 4 damage.
Yep. I love it. Groteg Bug Catcher. That is an ugly bug. It is a 1/2 for 2 Goblin Warrior with Trample. And when it attacks, it gets +1/+0 till the end of the turn for each creature in your party. Again, we're going with 2, so it's going to potentially be a 3/2 for 2 as it attacks. If nothing else, it's super aggressive. It can get in, they have to block, or they're going to potentially
It's automatically
lose
a
something.
2/2.
It's automatically a 2/2 for 2. So it's a good filler card that is probably bigger than that.
Brushfire Elemental. I really like this card. It's for red and a green. It's very aggressive in my opinion. It's a 1/1 with haste, and it can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. So you're getting in there quickly with this. And it does have landfall, and whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, it's going to have +2/+2 until end of turn. So you are going to be swinging with a 3/3 very quickly with this. Easily.
Canopy Baloth is one that I would really like to put my wings on because it is a 4/3 for 4, already a good aggressive card, and it has landfall that whenever a land enters the battlefield, it gets +2/+2 till the end of turn. So it's a 6/5. That's what? That's a great card. I love it. It's super aggressive. What's our next section?
We are already at our dudes and filler cards.
So these are the cards that you play when you've filled out all the rest of the stuff.
Yeah.
Filling in your holes.
That's right. So a Vine Gecko for 1 and a green. It's a 2/2. So 2/2 for 2. And the first kicked spell you cast each turn costs 1 less to cast, so that's kind of nice to have. And whenever you cast a kick spell, you get to put a counter on this guy, so that's really nice. So it might really help with that whole kicker theme if you're going with that.
But it's a
regardless,
2/2
it's
for
a
2.
2/2 for 2. Yeah.
Vastwood Fortification, put a 1/1 counter on target creature. It costs 1. The reason we put it here in the filler section, it's not a dude, but it's a nice filler because it gets you a 1/1 counter. It's not really good enough to be a combat trick, but it's also a land. So there's nothing wrong with putting it in there because it's a land. If it wasn't a land, I would probably say don't worry about putting this in. But because it's a land, it makes the filler spot.
Yeah. Territorial Scythe Cat?
Scythe Cat.
Scythe Cat. It's a 2/1 for 3, so we're kind of, why are we doing that? But it's because it has trample, and whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, put a 1/1 counter on this thing. So it very quickly can become a 3/2, a 4/3, very, very quickly with trample. So it's very aggressive.
Yeah. And a good counter.
Potentially.
Because it's a counter. It's not just until the end of turn. So that's the distinguishing thing that you should take into consideration. So, Tazim Raptor is a 2/2 for 3, but it has flying, which means that it kind of makes it worth it. It enters the battlefield. You can return land you control to its owner's hand, which can help with landfall synergy if you have any of that. But at the very least, it's a 2/2 that has flying, so that's a nice little filler card that's relatively on curve.
Something I want to point out that I see new players and old players alike, including myself, do when you return a land to your hand, make sure you return one of your tapped lands to your hand.
Play something first, and then
Even if you don't have a play, because anytime you have land untapped, that makes people go, right? So make sure you return one of those tap lands so that you always got that land available. Don't waste.
You're going to tap land to play this anyway. So return one of those.
For sure. Sorry, just wanted to point to
No,
that.
that's
point
a
that
great point.
out. Tajiri Blightblade, a little 1/1 Death Toucher for 1. I love those things. Get them out there, and then that says, back off, buddy.
Yeah. Either be a blocker or just be aggressive with it.
Exactly.
Spitfire Lagic. Why do I get the weird names? 3/4 for 4. It has landfall that whenever a land enters the battlefield, it does 1 damage to each opponent. So you're probably not going to win with that 1 damage, but it'll definitely slowly take them down every time you play a land. And it's a 3/4. So you remember we were talking about all of the kind of creatures. There's a lot of 3/2s, a lot of 3/1s. This blocks those and kills them. So in and of itself, it's a great little blocker that just keeps pinging them for 1.
Skyclave Shadow Cat, cat horror, because all cats are horror, in my opinion. Just kidding.
But
just
I'm a
kidding.
cat at heart.
Oh, I know. A little 3/3 for, what is it again? 4. But it has, you can pay 1 and a black and sacrifice another creature. With the black deck, you might be doing a lot of that. You can put a counter on it, so it becomes bigger very quickly. And whenever a creature you control with 1/1 counter on it dies, draw a card. So that's kind of nice little black card draw that you don't normally get, which is kind of nice. So maybe some black-green shenanigans with counters? I don't know. Possibly.
Shenanigans.
I might be playing that.
Skyclave Cleric. This is a nice little filler card. It is a 1/3 for 2, which is nice on curve. Nothing wrong with a little 1/3 blocker early game. It gains you 2 life when it enters the battlefield, which is kind of irrelevant, but it also has a land on the back of it.
That's right. So you don't need it, you can use it.
Yeah.
Prowling Felidar. This
You
should
get
be
all the
hers.
good
This should be
cats.
hers for 3 and a white. It's a 2/3 Vigilance kitty cat. And when it has landfall, so whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you get to put a counter on this little kitty cat. So here we go again with the counters.
Yeah, this is one of those, it's only filler because it costs 4, but it's good. It's a good filler card. Paired Tactician. This is one that you should have had.
That's one I
That's
should have.
okay. That's okay. We're both excited about all the cards. It is a 3/2 for 3, and whenever it and at least one other warrior attacks, you get to put a 1/1 counter on it. So it's going to get bigger. This is one that you probably want to make sure you have some other warriors in your thing. But even if you don't, a 3/2 for 3 was decent filler, so it didn't fit the synergy or the sideboard cards. Yeah.
Then we've got Nisa's Zendikar, which is a little enchantment aura, which is kind of strange to be putting in the dudes, but that's because you enchant a land, and that land becomes a 4/4 elemental creature with reach and haste. It's still a land. So, yeah, being able to have a big reach dude is nice. Having haste is nice. It could be aggressive, it could be defensive. And when it dies, you get to return that land to your hand, so you get to do the whole land thing again. So it's not like you actually lose a card.
You don't even lose your dude. You get it back as a land again.
Yeah, so it's really quite nice. Actually, that doesn't usually happen with an enchantment.
So this is a beautiful card. I love this, like, the whole thing that's going on here. It's just really pretty.
Yeah.
So it is a 2/1 for 3. It makes the filler cards because it has flying and flash. We talked about this one for a while. We kind of hummed and hawed. We're like, does it fit? Is it good? When it enters the battlefield, target opponent mills 2 cards. So it's got removal, it's got flying, so it's got evasion, and it's got a combat trick. So as a 2/1, it's not great, but because it has all of those things in it, it's definitely worth at least being a filler card for you if you're in black.
Yeah. It could do some damage, for sure. Marasa Sproutling for 2 and a green, a 3/3 that has kicker for 2. And when it enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, return target card with kicker ability from your graveyard to your hand. So that's kind of meh, but it's a 3/3 for 3 plant elemental. So it's a boy you can put in there.
Yeah. So this one, Marasa Root Grazer, we both were really in love with. It is a 2/3 for 2, which is really good card in and of itself. It has Vigilance, which bumps it up as well. The land synergy of tapping and bumping lands back and forth might be okay if you're in landfall synergy. not really relevant unless you are. So don't worry about that. But as a filler card, it is a good filler card. If you are in these colors, it is an auto-include filler card.
2/3 vigilance is so good. Marassa Brute, it's a 3/3 for 3. Basically, it's just a good big boy to have in there, and it's a warrior, so it adds to your party.
And we have this weird little moss pit skeleton for
it's very
2. It's a
strange.
2/2 for 2, which is why we put it in filler. You can kick it though, and if you kick it, it gets a 1/1 counter on it.
3 of them.
Yeah, it gets 3 1/1 counters, so it's a 5/5 for 5. So again, 5/5 for 5 or our 2/2 for 2. And whenever one or more 1/1 counters is put on a creature you control, if this is in your graveyard, you can put it back to the top of your library. So you can get it back. I think that is a really decent little filler card for anyone that has black and green Gruul colors. Yeah. Or not Gruul, Golgari colors.
Golgari, yeah. Mesa Lynx for 1 and I'm gonna have another cat.
She
Another
gets all
cat.
the kitties. We're trying to try to push cats on her.
Yes, so for 1 and a white, it's a 2/1. But as long as it's not your turn, Mesa Lynx gets +0/+2. So it's a 2/3 blocker. Or sorry, a 2/3 blocker for you.
Yeah.
What's wrong with that?
Nothing wrong with that. Same with this next one. It's a 1/3 for 2. The landfall here doesn't really matter. You gain a life every time a land comes in, but there's nothing wrong with a little 1/3 blocker early game. So nice little
Just
filler
helping
card.
you stay alive so you can get set
Remember,
up.
these are just after the fact. You have some holes. This is what fills in your holes.
Highborn Vampire. I got a vampire, yay. For 3 and a black, it's a 4/3 vampire warrior. So there's your party. There's a vampire. There's the whole black thing. You're going to see a black and white card that I'm really excited about coming up. So it just adds a good little card for that 4 spot there, for sure.
Guldraz Mucklord for 3. It's a 2/3, which is a nice little filler. Again, when it dies, you get to put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control, so it has a little upside to it. Nice little filler.
Goma Fata Vanguard, 2/2 for 2, human warrior. When it attacks, target creature an opponent controls with power less than or equal to the number of warriors you control. Can't block. So, yeah, could be pretty darn good. You can get in with your big
Potential
team.
upside, but it's a 2/2 for 2.
2/2 for 2.
Another 2/2 for 2 with potential upside. Gnarl Colony. It actually looks like a bear for a bear. It does have the kicker ability. So the upside is if it was kicked, it enters the battlefield with 2 1/1 counters. So I don't love that you pay 5 for a 4/4, but each creature you control with a 1/1 counter on it has trample, which is why it costs a little bit more.
Yeah.
So it will have trample as well as a 4/4.
Fireblade Charger for 1/1. As long as it's equipped, it has haste, which may or may not be relevant. You could do that little flying thing maybe. When it dies, it deals damage equal to its power to any target. So I've just found that this card is a really good little filler, and other goblins and those sorts of things where it deals 1 damage when it dies, it just finish things off or whatever. So
Well, you think of their...
It's
It's going to make them not attack with their 3/2.
yeah,
They have a 3/2 they want to
Yeah.
attack with. You block, you kill it, because you're going to block with it, do 1 damage to it, and then you're going to, when it
Exactly.
dies, do another damage to it. So you can kill their 3/2s. They're going to be
makes
like,
them back off.
I don't want to. Slows them down.
Yep.
It's good. Expedition Skulker. It is a vampire rogue. It's a 2/2 for 2, and it has death touch as long as you control another rogue, which you probably will. So nothing else. It's a 2/2 for 2.
Expedition Healer, it's a 2/2 for 2 as well. Vigilance, because it's white. It has lifelink as long as you control another cleric. So, again, this is that whole party thing.
Yeah. Expedition Champion, a 2/3 for 3, which has an upside if you have another warrior. It is actually a 3/3 for 3, which
4/3.
4/3 for 3. Yes, thank you.
Really good.
Yeah.
Cliffhaven Sellsword, a 3/1 for 2. Extremely aggressive card. I love 3/1s. I'm just crazy about
Yeah,
them.
but not really because it has no upside. That's why we didn't put it in aggressive. It's just it's just a vanilla card. Cleric of Life's Bond. Whenever a cleric enters the battlefield under your control, you gain a life.
Woohoo.
Whenever you gain a life for the first time each turn, put a 1/1 counter on Cleric of Lifeblood. It is a 2/2 for 2 with lots of potential upside to it. So I would definitely put this in if I was playing
Definitely.
Wars of Colors.
It's probably going to be me. Cleric of Chill Depths.
It's okay, I'm going to fly in.
You're going to fly in and kill me. Or mill me, like with this dang card. So Cleric of Chill Depths, it's a 1/3 for 1 and a blue, and whenever it blocks a creature, that creature doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step. So it's kind of a good little blocker to have early game. Plus later on you can block their big beastie boy, and it gives you time to set up and do your milling shenanigans.
Yes,
because
blue is all about slowing them down.
Yeah, they can't swing with that next turn. You get to do your little mousey.
I know, he's so cute. Canyon Jerboa. I have never been so attracted to a little mouse before. I don't like mice,
That's
but
the cat
he's
in
so cute. 1/2 for 3, but whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, creatures you control get +1/+1 until the end of turn. Mm-hmm. So he just buffs up all your other creatures. He's not a super awesome card, but because of the little upside there, I think he's worth including as a filler. And it's cute.
Angel Heart Protector, a 3/2 for 3 human cleric. So there's my clerics coming in. When it enters the battlefield, target creature I control gains indestructible until end of turn. So yeah, I'm gonna make my vampire indestructible. And have
So
all
it's
the
interesting.
counters.
So you can kind of see there's a lot of things that if clerics enter or warriors there's potential for tribal synergy in this deck as well as party synergy in this deck. So if you can't get enough warriors to make something, then you could do party stuff. So I think that's going to be really interesting. Yeah. Ardent Electromancer is a 3/2 for 3. It enters the battlefield. You get to add 1 mana for each creature in your party. So it might happen. You might get some stuff, extra mana that you can cast things with, but it's a good filler card regardless.
Okay.
On to the honorable mentions. We're in the back stretch. These are cards that what?
Well, a lot of them are really situational, but if you have that situation, they would be really, really good. So that tribal piece that Leslie was just talking about, or that party piece. If you were going for those things, these cards would be awesome in that case. We just had to mention them for sure.
And this first section is my favorite section.
The rogues.
What does this flying flash one do, Shauna?
Just Soaring Thoughts Thief for a blue and a black. It's a 1/3 with flash, so you've got a good blocker here, a flying blocker. And as long as an opponent has 8 or more cards in their graveyard, rogues you control get +1/+0. Whenever 1 or more rogues attack, each opponent mills 2 cards. So yeah, that's going to be crazy, because if you get lots of rogues going on, that's just going to be a pain in the butt.
You might want to have some
Very
flying
aggro.
removal if
Very
someone plays this.
Aggro, yes. You might want that. Speaking of rogues, what's the next card?
Shadow Stinger,
Jeez.
a 1/4 for 3. Tap another untapped rogue you control, and this card gains Death Touch until the end of turn. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, that player mills 3 cards. So
Those two together.
even if you have any other rogue, it's a 1/4. You're going to tap. You're going to give it Death Touch. You don't even. I wouldn't even do it. You just want them to think you might do it. You swing in. You have your little rogue there. You can be like, go ahead, block it. I'm just going to give it Death Touch, and they'll be like, I don't want to block.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's a 1/4, so it can take 3 damage. It can take 2 damage. The only way they can kill this is if they block with their 4 something. It's attacking. You're milling cards. Oh my gosh! If you get rogue synergy, this is a great little card. I love it.
And there's another one added on there, Merfolk Windrobber for 1. It's a 1/1 flyer. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, that player mills a card. So it just adds to that whole
Another
shenanigans. Another flying.
That mills.
You can sacrifice this and draw a card and activate this only if an opponent has 8 or more cards in their graveyard, which they're going to have because you're milling them like crazy.
Yes.
So
That's where the 8 or more cards might come in handy. So this next one will make Shauna happy.
Yes.
Scion of the Swarm. It is a 5 mana cost 3/3, but it is a vampire cleric with flying, which is nice.
Cleric.
So if you're going for cleric synergy, and whenever you gain life, you put a 1/1 counter on Scion of the Swarm. The reason it's not in the main deck that we don't think that you should play it is because you have to be able to gain life. But if you get some life gain synergy, then this is a great little card to put in.
Yeah, like you have that card that when a cleric enters the battlefield, you gain a life. Whammo, you get it.
Yeah, you play this,
Counter
it
on that right
automatically
away.
gain a life. It gets a counter right away, for sure.
Relic Axe, we thought this was a pretty good equipment to have if you have that synergy going. For 2, when it enters the battlefield, attach it to a target creature you control, so right away you're attaching it. And then the equipped creature, if it's a warrior, gets +2/+1. So that's really helps with your whole aggressive strategy on the warriors. Otherwise, it's a +1/+1. So an equip is only 2, so that's really kind of a nice way to buff up your dudes.
And the reason these are honorable mentions is because they're conditional, right?
Yep.
So same one with this Relic Amulet. Whenever you cast an instance or sorcery or wizard spell, put a charge counter on it. You can remove all the charge counters from it and deal that much damage to target creature. Great card, but it requires instant sorceries and wizards, so it's conditional. So that's why we put it in here. But if you have some wizard synergy, then
Yeah.
definitely.
And here's some more wizard synergy stuff. A Merfolk Wizard, Umara Wizard for 4 and a blue. It's a 4/3 that can be a land, so it's one of those modals. And whenever you cast an instant sorcery or wizard spell, it gains flying until end of turn. And again, if you're doing the wizard thing, this is a card to include.
Yeah. Umara Mystic, another great wizard synergy card. 4/3, it has flying. It's a 1/3, but whenever you cast an instant sorcery or wizard spell, it gets +2/+0. I like these cards better than Prowess because you can, when you cast a wizard spell, it also. So you can still play with your creatures in sealed
And do this.
and still get benefits from
Yeah.
them. You're not trying to fill your deck with instants and sorceries. So that's why I like them.
Here's another wizard, Rock Slide Sorcerer for 3 and a red, a 3/3. Whenever you cast an instant sorcery or wizard spell, it deals 1 damage to any target. So it's really
And if you do multiples, then you could potentially kill something of theirs because it's like 1/1/1, ping, ping, ping. Marauding Blight Priest, another one Shauna is going to love for her clerics, is basically a 3/2 for 3. Whenever you gain life, each opponent loses that much life. It is ultimately Blood Artist.
Yep. So you got to have that life gain to make that really cool. Otherwise, it's just a dude.
Yeah.
Kargan War Leader for it's a 3/3 for 3, 1 a red and a white. So again, it's a dude, but other warriors you control get +1/+1. So it will buff up your warriors. It could be potentially extremely aggressive.
I actually really hope I get that card. Strength of Solidarity. Sorcery. Choose target creature you control. Put a 1/1 counter on it for each creature in your party. There is such potential with this. But again, you need to make sure it really only works if you're going with counter synergy or you know that you have good party semantics.
Iridescent Horn Beetle for 4 and a green, a 3/4. And at the beginning of your end step, create a 1/1 green insect creature token for each 1/1 counter you've put on creatures under your control this turn. So this is for that probably Golgari deck that you're going to have lots of little counters on stuff, and you're going to be doing a whole bunch of little +1/+1s everywhere. You're going to want that. Then you have lots of little bugs to help you out.
So another counter synergy one. This one is a 3/3 or 3 mana cost for a 0/0, but it enters the battlefield with 2 1/1 counters on it, so it's automatically a 2/2 for 3. And each creature you control with a 1/1 counter on it has menace. So now you're all of a sudden putting it into the evasion category. The only reason it's in this is because you don't know if you have enough 1/1 counters on other things to make it worthwhile, but if you do, this is a great card for that.
Blood Beckoning for 1. It's a sorcery that can be kicked for 3. You can return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. If the spell was kicked, instead return 2 creature cards from your graveyard to your hand. So we were just thinking might be a sideboard card. depends on what's going on. Like if they're milling you, this might be a good card to sideboard in because then you can get those really good creatures out.
We
when
didn't
you
even
want
talk
to.
about that, but
Yeah,
if mill's
so
a thing.
if mill's a thing, this might be a card you might want to
At
sideboard
least.
in to get back those creatures, and then you get to pick which creatures you get to play. So that's kind of nice.
And this Bala Ged Recovery, same thing. It's a sorcerer. Return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. It has the benefit of being a land. If you think you need some returning from your graveyard to your hand stuff, then I would definitely sideboard this in. If you get enough, like, return a bunch of stuff from your hands, you only have 40 cards in your deck. So this all of a sudden makes your deck bigger.
Yeah, basically. Disenchant for 1 and a white. It definitely a sideboard thing. You want to be able to destroy artifacts and enchantments if that's what they're playing. Lots of. You want to get rid of those equipments or whatever. Yeah.
And I think our last card that we're talking about is Acquisition Expert. It is a 1/2 for 2, and when it enters the battlefield, target opponent reveals the number of cards from their hand equal to the number of creatures in your party, and then you choose one of those cards, and that player discards that card. This is a very interesting, because you don't just automatically get to see their hand; they get to choose. Which is why it was kind of like, well, maybe honorable mention. You might have 2 members of your party, so they get to pick 2 things. They could pick 2 of whatever. But because you could potentially see 4 things, by the time you see 4 things, they might only have 4 things in their hand.
Yeah.
You could still see their entire hand and pick something from it. So it's got a body with it. So that's why we gave it an honorable mention.
And it's a rogue, so it adds to that rogue thing.
Yeah.
For sure. Okay. Cool. Well, that's our video for today. Lots and lots of really great, fun cards in this new set coming out. A lot of potential for that synergies, like getting all rogues or all warriors or something like that, or doing the party thing.
Mm-hmm.
We'd love to hear from you what you think is the best way to go on your pre-release weekend coming up next weekend, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know. What do you think? Are
Well,
you excited about this?
I'm
one?
super excited about it. I love pre-release. I love new sets. I just get super excited when new cards start getting previewed. But if you're looking for us, we do have a Twitch channel. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Twitch. We stream almost every day with various different things. We have an EDH stream as well. So yeah, thank you, and reach out to us. And in the meantime, tap those magic cards and have fun doing it.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, guys.